See? Hi. So let me know if you know. Let me know. Where is Leo in your houses? It might be one house. It might be two houses. Now, I don't practice whole sign houses. If you do, then it's going to be one house. For me, I look at the degree and the degree in which we were born. So I was born with 23 degree Leo rising. So that means that my Leo house straddles both the 12th and the first house. So again, everyone has their own way of practicing astrology. For me, that's really important and where I found the most meaning in my life. If I was an all first house Leo, I just honestly don't think I'd be I'd be where I am in life. I think I'd be in some other places. And so I firmly believe that most of my planets are in the 12th house in Leo. So that's why I practice astrology the way I do, because it's had such a meaningful impact on me, and every astrologer practices different based on where they've had the most impact. Can I just point out my peonies back here? I just have to point them out for my Venusian video. I had to have my beautiful peonies in the background. Hi, if you're just joining. So if you know your Leo house, type it into the chat. I definitely am going to go through house by house. And when I do that, it's going to help you to know where Leo is in your chart. Specifically, we're looking at the retrograde time period. We're talking about Venus in Leo. We're talking about Venus retrograde in Leo. And we are having this big, long transit of Venus in Leo. It started yesterday, and it's going to take us all the way through to October. Did I write that down, that date? I hope I did. October 5th, I believe. Beginning of October, okay? I think it is the 5th. And during that time, why? Because usually it only is there for, a 30-day window or a 28-day window or something like that. And why it's there longer is because we have this retrograde. So we will go into the shadow, and we will retrograde, and then we'll come out of the shadow, and then it will go direct, and it'll backtrack through all the things that it retrograded in, okay? And so when this happens, it's good to keep in mind that this is a big deal, and it will kind of be the main theme for the summer, the themes of the summer. And what does Venus have to deal with? Venus deals with the way we want to receive love, the way that we value receiving energy, receiving money, receiving love, receiving nourishment. This is our love language. And so the way I've found this to be is that the way that we want to receive love is typically our Venusian place, because it's the feminine. It's like what we want to attract towards us. And the way that we do that is through our aesthetic. So we have this certain aesthetic, regardless of what your sun sign is, regardless of what your rising is, you have this certain aesthetic about you surrounding that. And so you want to look at your Venus placement in your chart, because not only is that going to give you good information about Venus for you and how you like to receive love and receive energy and receive resources. It's like what's going to give you the most satisfaction, bliss, and pleasure in your life is your Venus. And so even though it might not be the way that you go out and get it, it's the way that you're attracting it in. So this is where we want to understand about relationships and relating to others, is that we will be unsatisfied if we're in a relationship that doesn't meet our needs around our love language and how we like to receive love. And this is why there's so many conflict in relationships. We might be drawn to someone for their essence, their sun sign, their rising sign, something like that. But when it comes down into the day-to-day and giving and receiving love, or giving and receiving nourishment, giving and receiving that bliss and that pleasure, it can be very different, the things that we value in that arena versus how we are going out and getting things or how we're navigating the world. So I hope that makes sense. So when we have Venus retrograde, regardless of what sign it's in, which we will have happening from July 22nd in 28 degrees of Leo to September 3rd to 12 degrees of Leo. So it's going to be backtracking through kind of the end degrees of Leo into the 12th degree of Leo. So if you have planets or placements there, it's going to really highlight those. And then of course, if it's making aspects to other planets So a square, trine, sextile, those kinds of things. So that's when it's exact. July 22nd to September 3rd. We're going to be noticing these things around Venus retrograde. So Venus retrograde has us reevaluating and reworking all the re's that we think about with Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde gets so much hype, and we have a lot of somewhat understanding about what that means, but Venus retrograde is our heart. It's the heart of grade. Hi, if you're just joining. So it's the heart of grade that we receive, and oftentimes a Venus retrograde can feel like open heart surgery, where your vulnerabilities and your wounds around receiving love, the places and times and situations where you didn't get your emotional needs met, your love needs met, come to the surface. And this is especially true even though we're not in the Venus retrograde right now. We have Venus opposing Pluto right as Venus moves into Leo. It opposes Pluto freshly in Aquarius, which Pluto is retrograde and moving back. That's a whole other conversation and a big conversation to have, moving back into Capricorn. But right now it's in an opposition. So, you know, we do have this influence around uncovering and things opening up around maybe some places where we have experienced pain around love. Okay. So then we'll move away from that, thankfully, and Venus will be free for a little bit. We really want to amplify those positive heart connections, relationships, communication around getting your needs met, around your love languages, because when it goes retrograde, if you haven't done that in that like high time of Venus and Leo, which is from now until I would say like mid-July, if you haven't been doing that, getting your needs met, communicating what you need, being really clear about boundaries and energy and what's acceptable to you and what's not, that's where the conflicts arise. So typically what we see during a Venus retrograde is conflicts around relationships, breakups or breakthroughs, which are positive, right? And just like things coming to the surface around where you haven't been having your needs met, or where your partner hasn't been having their needs met, re-evaluating certain agreements that you thought were okay aren't okay, or things like that. And then also old flames, old relationships come back into play. And now this is where we get into like the house by house. It's going to be so specific to those things, and you'll see certain themes coming through clear as day around the house that this is in. Important to understand, this is where the house by house becomes so important. And I don't do by rising sign because it depends what degree your rising is in. So I'd rather share with you a more accurate depiction, in my opinion, of looking at the house where Leo is. The Leo glyph looks like this, and you just look to where that is in your chart, and it might be in two houses like I mentioned. So if you're just joining, look at where Leo is in your chart. Let me know in the comments. Okay, Little Space Babe says Venus and Leo. Hello, here we go. So when you have Venus and Leo, and then Venus comes back into Leo, that is your Venusian return. It's a very positive time. It's a very lovely time and juicy time for love, all kinds of love. And then when Venus retrogrades in your sign, it's obviously going to have more significance, okay? And then maybe it's Lisa says first house. So this is happening in your first house. So I am going to go through the houses. Little Space Babe says second house. Ooh, moon and ascendant we got here. And then look at what degree. So if you have your moon or ascendant, look at what degrees those are in. What degree it's in, because you're looking specifically from 28 degrees of Leo to 12 degrees of Leo. That's where it's backtracking through. Not to get too specific or anything. Can you tell my Venus is in Virgo? For anyone who doesn't have their chart, doesn't know how to read your chart, still, like, these things are going to be applicable to everybody. So we're reassessing and reworking themes around worthiness, self-love, relationships, how we want to give and receive love, but specifically how we want to receive love. Typically how we give love is more Mars. Not always, but typically we look to Mars for that. This also has to do with money, because Venus is energy and around giving and receiving, and that is very much our money. So really being aware of how you're giving and receiving money, where you spend your money, where you tend to hold back from spending money, where you're being asked to reassess that, like what you value and spending based on that. So this is very much a reassessment time. This is why it's not a great time when Venus is retrograde in general to not go undergo like big cosmetic procedures, big, big changes to your appearance or beautification processes. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get a haircut during Venus retrograde. I'm just not guaranteeing that it's going to be a great haircut, okay? So is it a good time to get engaged? That's a great question. So I think this is all very specific to your own chart and to your partner's chart. So I never want to say it's not a great time for something massive like that, because let's face it, people are going to get engaged during this Venus retrograde, and there is no person that should be saying that that's not a positive thing, right? Anytime that we're choosing to commit to someone and choosing love, it's a beautiful time. So at least 2 weeks before the Venus retrograde. Okay, so again, like I won't say it's a negative time. I will just say typically when things happen during the Venus retrograde, they're going to be revisited during the time after that Venus retrograde. And so again, so I talked about maybe breakups might happen during that time, or conflicts come up around relating or not getting your needs met in a relationship. But those breakups typically during a Venus retrograde aren't clean. They're messy, and they tend to be something that don't always last. So you might break up during the Venus retrograde, but then get back together after, right? It goes direct. Sorry, my leg is falling asleep. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, so I'm not saying it's not a great time to get engaged. I'm just saying that typical, like traditional astrology would say that, but I would say pay attention to what your deepest desires are, and if it aligns with that, great, and go for it and do it in full faith and full trust. Don't do it in a sense of having it in the back of your mind that it might not last, because planting those seeds are going to be more of a deterrent or more of an issue than the astrology ever. And so I always say with the astrology, our free will is always first above the astrology, and it's our choices that make up our life. We can just make better choices if we understand our astrology and we understand the astrology that's happening. Venus retrograde can often feel like open heart surgery. But it's like when you are in, I don't know, if you're in a relationship and it really like cracks you open, but in that cracking open, typically it's like not like the way it cracks you open isn't always quote unquote like what you'd consider a positive thing. Like it cracks you open because their wounding matches a wounding that you have, and because that matches up, it forces you to look at that wound. And so Venus retrograde very much plays with that theme of cracking you open, but the cracking open doesn't come without pain. But at the same time, that pain is necessary in order for you to grow. This is growing pains, right? So the last time that Venus was retrograde in Leo was 2015. We're talking about Venus with these 8-year cycles. So looking back to 2015, even though that was a little bit, it tested its waters into Virgo, it was mostly in Leo. So look back to 2015 if you can, the summer of 2015, and what was going on for you then. What were you evaluating then? I know for me personally, that was a very like spiritually activating time for me. It was a very painful time because I was mourning the death of my mother, but it was also like this really beautiful connective time to nature and to spirituality. So really kind of looking at that, and then 8 years before that, and then 8 years before that. So we're looking at, I think I have these dates right, 2015, then 2007, 1999, 1991, if you're old enough, maybe you weren't born yet. So those were the times when we had Venus retrograde in Leo. Now, this doesn't mean that Venus hasn't been retrograde in other signs. Venus is like the 5-pointed star. So when she retrogrades in 5 signs in a cycle for 8, and then revisits in 8-year cycles, right? So the signs that she has been retrograding in are Aries, Gemini, Scorpio, Leo, and Capricorn. So if you are one of those signs, you've had a Venus retrograde in your sign in the last, 8 or so years. So looking at that, the last one that we had was in 2020. It was the spring of 2020, and it was in Capricorn, I believe. I should double check that, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it was in. So this is a really important time to understand Leo themes. So Leo themes are royalty. Leo themes are the lion energy, the courageous, brave, free-spirited energy of being confident and shining in your radiance, shining in your power. And when we have Venus moving through Leo, the energy gets bigger. Things get showier. There tends to be a more dramatic flair. So there might be like different dramas happen. My daughter was just telling me, like, there's some dramas happening at her school all of a sudden, like different things like pop up where you're like, oh, that's dramatic, you know? Also, Leo themes have to do with leisure and play and romance. So there might be new romance or new different ways of having leisure popping up. So it's very important to make time to play when Venus is in Leo. And since Venus is in Leo from now through the whole summer, guess what? We get to play more, and we learn through play. This is very true. When you look at children, when you look at adults, we all learn through play, and we have to make time to have that play in our life to learn new things. So start to think of it that way, and you'll make more time for play in your life. This is also, Leo highlights children. So Leo highlights your own inner child. So when we have Venus moving through Leo, especially when we have a retrograde, it highlights inner child healing, inner child integration. This is so much of the work that I do as a triple Leo, holding that space for you to get back in touch with your inner child, because I firmly believe that the essence of who you are is there when you're a child, and it's only through the blocks and the shoving down of who you truly are that we lose touch with our essence. So if you want to regain that essence and that really strong connection to who you truly are and who you're meant to be and shine in the world, this is the time to work with me. I actually have a promo code for you. If you put Cyrus into booking any astrology reading with me, you will get half off until June 20th. I do this. I am a triple Leo, yeah. And I do this during this time of year to celebrate summer solstice, but also one of my favorite gateways opens, the Cyrus Gateway. And if you don't know about Cyrus, it is our spiritual sun. It is very much connected to our deep spirituality, and it's a great time to learn about that. If you're not already on my mailing list, get on my mailing list, because I just sent out an email. It's a great time to work with me, half off. Half an hour readings with me, 2 hour readings with me, a whole day working on your business, your coaching you through any kind of blocks or resistance you have to showing up in a bigger way and shining in all of your glory. We use your astrological chart. We use somatic astrology. We dive into your embodiment and where you are not feeling safe in being your full essence. So if you're interested in that, click the link in my profile and enjoy that sale, because I'm super excited to offer that. And we just talked about your inner child, and I want to come back to that, because also if you have children, this is also a time to really pay attention to your connection to your children, playing with your children, your spiritual connection to your children. And it's such a vital time to reconnect. Take away the screens for a little bit, get out in nature, enjoy that sunshine. Our sun, so if we look at Leo, it's very connected to our sun. No matter what sign your sun is in, it's connected to your sun. So you want to look at that as well. When we're talking about Venus, we're talking about the Venus ruled houses. So where Libra and Taurus, what houses those are in for you, because those very much has to do with the Venusian themes, and then also your sun and your Venus placement. So this is something that we would dive into in a chart reading, but you can do it for yourself if you know how to find those things. So your sun, what house is it in? And your Venus, what house is it in? And that's going to be activated during this time as well. We say that we've been having all this energy in Taurus, and we're going to continue for a little bit here because we got Jupiter in Taurus. Watch my video on that. If you're not already following me on YouTube, it's so much easier to see my videos. They actually pop up instead of weird Instagram algorithms. So follow me, Sparkle and Shine Guidance, on YouTube if you want to see those videos. I have Jupiter and Taurus. I have the Pluto moving signs video. All of these videos are going to be really helpful to you looking at your own chart and understanding what transits we're in. We're in some big times here. We're in some big transits. So I wanted to bring up that Taurus house because this is making a square to that. So Venus is squaring her own ruled house. So your Taurus house, and it's squaring Jupiter first. It's squaring Uranus and all of these things that are over there in Taurus. And so you want to keep that in mind because Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So it's really highlighting our self-worth, our value, our money, all of those things. If you're not noticing themes around that, you might want to check your pulse, because everyone is talking about right now money, worthiness, feeling valuable, really trying to understand where the universe is asking you to move, what types of ways you're being asked to shift directions or refocus. So this is a huge time for that. So that's why it's such a great time to work together. Click the link in my profile to book. Okay, now we're going to move into house by house. So let's go into the first house. If you have Leo in your first house, you do appear very Leo-y. Leo is part of who you are, right? And so this time is going to be really important for you. And when Venus is in Leo before it goes retrograde, this is a time to really pay attention to how you're dressing, how you're styling yourself. You might notice, like I'm noticing, that I'm wanting to dress more colorfully. Wanting to display more color, wanting to wear your blingy bling, wanting to dress up, wanting to do your hair different. This is a healthy expression of yourself, a healthy expression of your main Leo energy in the first house. Very much has to do with the hair. So you might be wanting to restyle your hair or do something different. And this is a great time to do that. The time where it's important to kind of, pause on that maybe, is July 22nd to September 3rd when it's retrograde. And when it's retrograde, that is more of a time to do the self-value work, the confidence work, the self-building work, and looking at where any blocks. Sorry, the sun is being weird right now. It's like going right over this tree, so it's kind of like shady or dappled. But it's probably not bothering you. It's just bothering me. So yeah, so Venus first house, this is a time of metamorphosis, and the metamorphosis is on the physical. Like you might notice that you're wanting to start working out more, or you're wanting to change something about your appearance, and it's a healthy time to do that as long as you keep it healthy and you're not overdoing it in a way to feel some sort of superiority or some sort of like doing it out of spite or doing it for someone else. This needs to be done for you. This is first house. That has to be what you value and what you want. And as long as it's in alignment with that, this is a huge time of metamorphosis. This is a great time to work together, because this first house has to do with that building self-confidence in your aura and your energy. So this is a time to bring it. And if you're feeling any hesitation around that, dive into what are the blocks around that. Dive into what are the beliefs around that, and who made you feel a certain type of way about who you are and how bold and big you're supposed to be in this lifetime. So it's a great place to work together. Okay, second house. If this Venus is moving through your second house, if you have Leo in second house, this is about an increase to your personal power, your personal resources, building and accumulating your resources, becoming that beautiful container to hold more. And any kind of blocks or any kind of things that are coming up for you around being able to hold more, being able to attract more to you, and what things might need to shift around what you've previously been doing or investing your time or resources in that you now need to shift into. Really taking that frame of reference of, is the thing that I'm working on right now really worthy of my work? Is the thing that I'm investing energy in right now really worthy of my investment? Am I spending more time scrolling mindlessly and kind of like mindlessly consuming, or am I creating? This is a time for you to create and to create that space for you to amplify your power, amplify your resources, and really having sacred intention around that. This is a very important time to have that spiritual connection to why you want to develop more, why you want to increase your power, why you want to increase your resources, because it has to come from that place in order for you, second house Leo, to feel aligned to it and to really use all of your crown and your Leo-ness to attract it to you. We all have Leo-ness, we all have a sun, we all have a Leo house. Tap into it. Okay, third house. This is about a renewal and a recalibration, nourishing those roots, nourishing this is the siblings house, as I mentioned. It's also like your childhood friends, your closer network, the people that you've known a long time. And you might have people coming back into your awareness or back into your world that you need to remember something. They're a reflection to you of something that you have forgotten, that you need to get back to your roots. Get back to your roots. This is such an important time to do that, for you to recenter yourself, reroot yourself, nourish those connections so that you can get stronger, so that your message, this is very much the communications house, your strong message, your courageous message needs to be heard, but you have to first nourish those things in order for it to come from a really grounded, anchored place. It's a very exciting time for you. You might be reworking something that you let go of a while ago, and it's time for it to come back into being, either some writing or some speaking or something about communicating. This can be like the 3rd and the 11th house are very much the social media houses, and so there might be something where you're rebranding or regrowing. This is a great time to work together, and I have a very special offer going on right now, so check that out if you're interested. 4th house. So if this Venus retrograde is happening in your 4th house, this is like your foundation. So we talked about 3rd house. The cusp of the 3rd and the 4th house is our IC, and it's very much, both of those houses have to do with our roots, but the 4th house is more of home and our childhood in a way that is more of a maternal connection. So it's the house of the moon. It's very much about like our emotional connection to Divine Mother, land, home, the land from which you come from. This would be a great time to revisit, like if you're from somewhere, to go back home and visit, or to get yourself to your familial's homeland. This is a really powerful time to do that, because there's things that need to be shed during this time around connections that you may have made more recently that you need to let go of, and you need to come into a deeper knowing of who you truly are, regardless of what this person says you are, regardless of what this person says you are. Who are you? You get to decide. You get to choose. And this goes back to the free will. You have to activate your free will. This is very much Leo energy. You have to activate your own free will and not give any fucks about what anyone else says about who you are, because it doesn't matter. They're just all projecting their own stuff. So you get to choose, you get to decide, release something, and then offer something. Offer something up that you have been holding on to that is not serving you. Offer it up to the universe. Get yourself in a body of water, in the sunshine shining on you, and just let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. And then you'll be ready to share more of your gifts. 5th house. If you have Venus retrograde moving through your 5th house, so type it in the chat if you know and you're watching along. Where is this happening for you? What house is it in? 5th house is a deep initiation. So I talk about initiations in my business alignment coaching container, Crown Codes. Anything that challenges you is an initiation. And often the initiations aren't this beautiful thing where the whole community surrounds and is clapping while you get a gemstone in your crown. That is not typically how modern day initiations work. Modern day initiations are isolating, and you do it in the darkness. You do it alone typically, and it challenges you to your deepest core. And so when I see the 5th house energy with Leo there, with Leo naturally being the ruler of the 5th house, this is an initiation, and it doesn't mean, I don't mean to like scare you. I don't mean that it's going to be really all challenging, but there are challenges here. And one of the challenges is about the Leo energy that you naturally have in the 5th house, and where you tend to go all big, all in way too soon. And this initiation has to do with this deeper understanding and the self-reliance of not giving all of yourself to someone in a romantic relationship especially, but it can also be your children. It's not healthy to give our children all of us, because guess what? Then they see that reflected and they think that that's how they should be when they raise their children, and that is not how they're supposed to be. I know for myself, as a triple Leo, whenever I go for like a dancing retreat or some kind of thing, I come back home and my children seem to glow more. They seem more happy because they are feeling that their person that cares for them is also taking care of themselves. And there's nothing more important to know that your caregiver can also take good care of themselves. So I really want to say, you might not be a parent, you might not have kids, but you have something in your life where you're giving way too much of yourself to it. And this initiation, this challenge has to do with you coming back into yourself, you doing what you need to do for yourself and seeing the fruits of that come. And it's a really beautiful process. And for those of you that are interested in crown codes, definitely check it out. The link's in my profile. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful process that we go through in 6 weeks. It includes a self-paced course, Crown Codes, and then the one-on-one weekly work with me. So definitely check it out if you are wanting to come into more of your permission and your alliance with your mission around what you came here to do and what you came here to share. Especially, this is particularly for women in business. Okay, now we are moving on to the 6th house. The 6th house is about a cycle of completion happening. Something is wrapping up. You need to really make sure you tie that bow and close it up. The circle of completion, making sure you see that circle completing itself. Close it down. Close down that contract, close down that cycle. You're done with it, and make peace with it. So this could be a breakup. This could even be like 6th house is our pets. It could be like the loss of a pet. It could be something with your day-to-day work, so losing a job or gaining a job. But there's some cycle of completion happening here, and it's so important for you to make peace with the changes. Feel into gratitude. Feel the feelings if you're feeling anger, resentment, or grief. Sometimes there can be a sense of abandonment with this energy, and so make sure you like honor your feelings, and at the same time tap into gratitude around having that experience. There's always space for gratitude, and I know that certain times we don't want to hear that, but that's probably the specific time that we need to hear it is when we don't want to hear it. So if that triggers you, feel into gratitude. Hi, if you're just joining, let me know what house is your Leo house. Where is Leo in your chart? Okay, 7th house. Wow. So we had someone on here that had 7th house, and 7th house has to do with this deep reverence, tapping into specifically what came up was like asking for support from the unseen realm, from whatever you believe in, source energy, God, goddess energy, earth energy, asking it to support whatever issues are coming up for you around relating, around partnership. There's probably something that, even if it's not coming up when you listen to this, if you're listening to it now, during the Venus retrograde is definitely going to be triggered. 7th house is our partnerships. I think that there's ate a bug. Okay. 7th house is our partnerships, and it is about deepening these connections. And sometimes how we deepen the connections, I don't know if y'all have been in like a long-term relationship, but if you've been in a relationship long enough, which is interesting because so many people haven't, it's kind of sad. But anyway, if you have, you know that in every relationship, there is a birth, there's like a gestation, birth, life, death process. And our relationships are meant to go through that process. Everything is cyclical. Everything comes back around. But if you're not honoring the death in your relationship, the death of a certain way of relating to each other, the death of a certain way of connecting, whatever it is, then you can't really get to the rebirth, right? So we have to honor those deaths, and we have to honor that things change. And this is a time for you to deepen your connection to any kind of unseen forces to support whatever needs to shift in your life. So if you're feeling challenged, if you're feeling issues especially in marriage or relationships, but it can also be in business partnerships. It can be in anything you're in contract with, anything that you sign your name to. This is 7th house. So really pray for the bigger picture, ask to be seen what you need to see in a way without taking it personally. The 7th house is also the house of projections. The descendant in the chart, so the 7th house is the beginning of the 7th house is the descendant. It's typically what we don't feel safe in embodying ourselves, so we tend to project it and be attracted to it in a partnership. But that very thing that we tend to be attracted to in a partner at the beginning tends to be the thing that drives us crazy once we've been together for a while, because there's an aspect to it that we as the individual hasn't embodied yet. So understanding your 7th house ruler is so important, so vital to understanding your shadow when it comes to relationships. So definitely, if you're interested in that, I love diving into this. It's like there's so much juiciness in the chart to dive into. So, okay, so 7th house, this might be a time for you to really have support. Have support in, I would say specifically some kind of mystical support. This could be a counselor, this could be a coach, this could be someone in the, like a monk, going to do a retreat or going to do a silence meditation. There's definitely something around having that support in a bigger way, someone that opens the way for you to see it in a different way. So if you have the 7th house transit, just be aware of that. 8th house, having Venus retrograde your 8th house, it's not an easy thing. Let's be real. So someone on here also had that, and I wanted to just share, this is a really important time to deal with things as soon as they come up, not avoiding things, not like when someone says something that just feels off, not giving them the benefit of the doubt, like actually being like, oh, what do you mean by that, right? Like not shoving things to the side or dealing with them later. Really paying attention to what you want to avoid. What are you avoiding right now? And whatever you're avoiding, try to confront it head on before Venus goes retrograde. It's going to sharpen your wit. It's going to sharpen your tools. It's going to make you feel more at peace with yourself and not have sleepless nights, which is very important. Those nights where you're replaying situations or trying to understand someone's perspective, like just confront it. And feel confident in confronting those things, that they're going to help you to shine in your light more, and they're going to help other people to navigate as well, because when you're clear with your boundaries, they can be clear with their boundaries. And this is really a gift to people to give them that. Yeah. So Camille, let me know if that makes sense. And this is a time of release also. This is a time of severance and release. This could also be a severance package. This also, Venus is money, and Venus and Leo in the 8th house, it could be getting resources or getting money from a severance package. You may have to fight for it. You may have to advocate for yourself. You may have to not avoid it, but there could be something around money and other people's money, business money, things coming to you. So let's stay open to that for you, huh? 9th house. Okay, so if you have Venus retrograde transiting through your 9th house, this is a time of, guys, I'm sorry, I do have to stretch my back for a minute. So if you're just joining, tell me, where is your Leo house? Your Leo house is the glyph in your chart that looks like this. And knowing where your Leo house is going to show you where Venus is transiting right now and is going to retrograde in the summer, July 22nd to September 3rd. Okay, so check that out. We're moving on. 9th house. So if you have Venus transiting through your 9th house in Leo, this is a time of pacing yourself. Leo can be really big energy. It's like the sun, right? But also we can take on a lot, or like that Leo energy can be like too big for its britches. So the 9th house is about expansion. It's about travel and expansion. So you might be planning a trip at this time. I would say just be careful, especially around Venus retrograde, to not get too extravagant or not, be like really Jupiterian. Is the 9th house is like too big, too fast. This also could be, this can be anything. This can be anything that's expanding you right now. It could be, if you're in a program or you're interested in studying something or getting into a program, like really evaluate like pros and cons of everything. If you're already in a program and you're giving all of your energy to it, this is a time for you to have discipline around your need for play and your need for your basic needs as well. And if you are in a program and you're not giving it enough attention, this might be a time to get disciplined and give it a little bit more attention, because this 9th house is all about expansion. Whatever is expanding you, remembering to play, remembering that play is going to give you clarity and it's going to give you more purpose. So pace yourself. Don't go all in on something without looking at all the little things that need to be factored in, okay? So that's 9th house. And 9th house could also be dealing with, like planning a trip where you're spending way too much money, or, giving too much of your resources or time into something that expands you, but you need to kind of pace yourself a little bit with it, okay? So 10th house. If you have Leo in your 10th house, in general, your life is about being big energy and about sharing boldly and sharing confidently. And it's really important for you to value that in yourself and to understand that is a beautiful thing. Now, obviously, it'll depend on if you have planets or placements that are getting hit here. But this is a beautiful time for you to get back in touch with the sun and the moon and the cycles and seasons, and maybe even like cycles thinking yourself, if you have a cycle, because this 10th house Leo can be over devoted to work, giving too much, being all about, the pay and the kind of the basics of business without making much time for play. Now, again, this will depend on if you have planets or placements here, but this Venus retrograde is really kind of opening that up and having you look at, what are your rituals? What are your ceremonies? What are your things that you value in your life that have nothing to do with your personal authority? Like, one thing, like, I just, being aware of what you share and being aware of the things that you keep private and keeping some things for just yourself. And those things that you keep for just yourself are going to be that much more powerful if they're kept just for you. So this, just kind of keeping that in mind when you're wanting to share like your altar online, or you're wanting to, divulge all of your plans and all of your secrets. It's like, you can keep some stuff for yourself, and that actually has great significance. And actually, in many cultures around the world, for many lineages, people have a secret name. Like, my kids all have a kind of a secret name, and the secret name is not known by everyone because it is a spiritual name. It is a spiritual connection. It's not for the world to know. So just keep that in mind. Whatever, I don't know why that's coming through for the 10th house, but it is. So I'm going to honor that. And just tapping back into like that deeper value and that deeper understanding that there are certain things, like certain passages and certain things that are meant just for you. Okay, 11th house. I'm like, why am I talking about that? But for some reason that's coming up, so I'm just going to honor it. So 11th house, if you have Venus retrograding through your 11th house, so you have Leo in the 11th house, this is about your bigger network, the circles that you run in with and the people that you're in connection with. And so it's really important to understand that the people that you're circling with, the people that you're networking with, do they value you? Do they value what you bring to the table? Do they speak highly of you when you're not in the room? Do they bring your name up? Do they refer people to you? Are they really in your best interest to align yourself with? And this is a really hard question, because it's difficult to really honor and look at these things. But this is a really important time for you to reevaluate that, especially as Venus retrogrades. Again, back to like your resources and your energy and your time, not giving that to people that aren't honoring it, not giving it to situations that aren't honoring it, not giving it to places that aren't honoring it. So this is also the social media house. We know things have been changing drastically with social media. So really being aware of like, Are the things that you're investing in, are the things that you're giving your time and your energy and your future visioning to actually benefiting you? And reevaluating that, and coming back into like how you're beautifying things, beautifying your spaces, harmonizing your spaces. This could be even your like grids. This could be your website. This could be like something that you're putting out into the world that is a part of you, but specifically having to do with the larger community and your future vision and your future goals. Aligning yourself back to your mission. And this is a great placement if you do have your own business for crown codes, working one-on-one with me. Check that link out in my profile. And this is about, you know, making sure that the things you're doing now are actually building towards the reality that you want to see in the next 5 years. Okay, 12th house. If you have Venus retrograde moving through your 12th house, you have Leo in the 12th house, this is a time of incubation. It is a time of going deep within yourself. It is a time of where your dreams, your visions, your subconscious mind is going to be bringing things forward. The 12th house is where it's a very interesting thing to have Leo on the 12th house, because Leo is very big energy. You know, a lot of people say it's like ego. It is like the sun, like shining bright. But then the 12th house is where ego dissolves. Hey, it's the place where ego dissolves to God. So like I have this beautiful thing that's like, it starts with ego and then the words start to shift and they move into God. And it's where your ego, you know, we can talk about ego death. It's not that we're ever like getting rid of our ego. That wouldn't be healthy. And actually that's a struggle for 12th housers. If you have planets in the 12th house, it can be a struggle, like holding on to that ego. But when you have Venus moving through the 12th house, it's going to highlight your connection to spirit, your connection to source. It might be that you go through some ego tests where you have to dissolve parts of your ego and reevaluate how you're choosing to show up, who you're choosing to be. And the 12th house also has to do with the subconscious, dreams, and it can also be how other people project onto us. It's different than the 7th house and those projections, but it is more of the subconscious house. It's like the 12th house is also the house of the womb. So if you have planets or placements close to your rising, it can highlight the relationship in the womb, like your relationship to your mother in particular, but also other people that had an impact on you when you were in the womb. The 12th house is like the gestation house. It's the connection between worlds. It's like the house that straddles dimensions. And it also can be the house of like institutions, hospitals, prisons, and the reason being is that those places are places where you lose ego. I spent one night in prison. It's actually not prison, it was jail. I spent one night in jail, and I'll tell you, nothing dissolves your ego like spending a night in jail does. And if you want the whole story on that, I'll tell it another time. But I'm just saying, those things make you lose your ego real quick. And there's a positive thing about losing your ego is you have to gain your connection with God. And so when you have Venus retrograding here, it's reevaluating the places where you've been holding on to ego too hard, and you need to ease up, you need to let go. You have to be aware of something is being incubated through you. You are a channel, and it's not about your ego, it's about your spiritual purpose here on planet Earth. And in that same vein, it's also a time to just be aware of other people's projections, protecting your own energy, watching for leaks and things with your auric field, and having determination to really do this incubation work to protect your little like egg, whatever it is, whatever you're wanting to see come to fruition. Really guard it and honor it, because this is like the cosmic egg. It's like this 12th house energy with Venus retrograde here is like there's something bigger moving through you, and we have to let ego die for that thing to be birthed through you, just like in birth, how the mother is like the portal for the child to come through. So those are the 12 houses, and I'm going to tell you that if you've been wanting to get an astrology session with me, they are 50% off while space lasts, or until June 20th. And that code is Cyrus. When you book through the link in my profile, there's a bunch of different links in my profile. The introductory call with me is a 30-minute dive into your chart. We do less of the somatic work and more of the astrological work. If you wanted to dive into the somatic work, where we take your astrological chart and we honor what's coming up right now, and we dive into it in a visceral way into your body and see what is being activated right now for you and how we can clear the space and reintegrate different tools and techniques to help you move into this next chapter in your life with a lot more confidence, clarity, and courage. That's the 2-hour session with me. The 4-hour session with me is really, it's more like, it's not necessarily a rebranding, because if you're just working on your brand, it's that, but specifically what most people use it for is a rebranding. You've had a business for a year or 2 years, things are kind of weird, or you're transiting into something else. We dive into not only your astrological chart, but also your gene keys. We really create this model that is really outstanding for getting you into your mission in a really crisp, clear way, so that all of your choices and a lot of the things that I talked about today here really come into play. Where are you investing your time? Where are you investing your resources? Let's curve that. Let's swerve that into something that's really going to be beneficial for making more money and having more satisfaction with your time and your life and your resources. So if you're interested in that, this is the best time to do that work, because it is half off. So yeah, that's it. And if you see this pop up on your feed, and please like it, share it, comment,